My friends and subscribers, this is Philly Joe. You can call me Joe. I talk straight, and I think you know that. Tonight we're going to look at a big fat liar. And this liar is a senator from Iowa. I've got her on videotape talking shit. And by the time we finish with this video, you'll know that she's full of shit. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, this is South Philly Joe as promised. And I'm going to put on a recording of Joni Ernst. She's a senator, as I said. She's a senator from Iowa. And she's being questioned in Templeton, Iowa by an independent, not by a Democrat or a Republican. This is an independent asking her questions. So let's check it out for a bit.
Just this morning, we have President Trump saying, "Oh, we need to talk to Xi Jinping and have, President Xi and have him investigate Joe Biden." How is that helping anybody? Where is the line? When are you guys going to say enough and stand up and say, you know what, I'm not backing any of this? Because we constantly have everybody, oh, well, it's not this, it's not that, or, everything else. But yet you still stand there silent, and your silence is supporting him and not standing up. You didn't pledge an oath to the president. You pledged it to our country. You pledged it to our Constitution. When are you guys going to start standing up and actually be there for us?
Okay.
All right, so if you look at this, she's questioning him, basically saying, what are you gonna fucking do? Do something, right? Like I say, you gotta do something sooner or later. Now, I could have put on this video in its entirety, which would have been maybe 30 minutes, I don't know, but it would have been a lot longer than this clip. And why I say that is this. Senator Ernst kept going on after this question, not talking anything about Trump. Nothing. Just some shit about insurance that the woman had talked about earlier. So she goes on and on and on with some shit, talking all kinds of shit that has nothing to do with Trump, until she finally does get to it. She's pushed and she has to answer. So remember, the question that the woman asked was not answered until this point, which is much later, which already tells you something. She's avoiding some kind of shit. So let's look at Senator Ernst's answer.
So, President Trump, if I can say yay, nay, whatever, President is going to say what the President is going to do. It's up to us as members of Congress to continue working with our allies, making sure that we remain strong in the face.
Now she's talking about how she's going to work with the fucking allies and as a member of Congress. So she's already tiptoeing away from the fucking question about Trump. What are you going to do about him and his shit? How are you going to confront him? So she's tiptoeing.
Adversity. I mean, that's what we have to do, is continue to encourage those other countries. So that's what we will continue to do.
I beg your pardon, but
See, she's not answering the fucking question. I'm going to continue to do this and shit. Yeah, I'm going to continue to blink my eyes and look like I'm doing shit. But I'm not actually going to answer your question and say, yeah, I'm going to talk to Trump and tell him, your shit is a bunch of shit and let's take care of this thing. No, she tiptoes away from it because she's afraid, because she's a Republican and she's afraid what he's going to do or what some Tea Party people are going to do in Iowa. Let's see what else she said when she's fucking pressed.
All of our allies, he's pushing aside, he's making fun of them on Twitter, he calls
Well,
them.
and
Just reading something Dave gave me. Good evening, everybody. It's Saturday night. That must mean it's divided we stand. And we certainly are divided, and we better start standing because there's a lot headed our way. It is great to see everybody. And tonight is a special night because we have Dave Price again, but he's at large. He's at the hotel. Question is, which hotel is he at? So, without any further ado, I am going to introduce you to my partner in crime, David Price. Dave, it's great to see you. What the hell's up with you?
Well,
You're at a hotel, right?
I'm echoing, Brian.
Oh, 1 second here. Oh, 1 second.
Glad to see you haven't gotten any better.
All right, there we go. There we go. We're good.
Oh, now I'm frozen. Now my picture's frozen. There we are.
All right, you're good.
Well, Brian, I think I'm somewhere a little bit north of Duckfuck, Virginia here. There's some hills here, and riding around somewhere today. Judy and I had a good time. We counted the number of barns painted with Trump signs.
Oh, God.
My favorite was burnouts for Trump. Yes, we are. I like that. What does that mean? Did they burn out the property? Did they? I don't know. Were they burning joints? No, seriously, we're actually in Roanoke. It was very nice. We came down, left early for the show because, of course, it's family. We've got to be there. Two of our, I guess you could almost say charter members. They were on very quickly. Scott Sayre.
Yes.
And Jeff Wetter. People out there have probably seen their comments before. We're celebrating their 20 years together, 9 of which has been a legal marriage. And so it was quite interesting. But it was very interesting because in this, oh, God, just thousands of Trumpers, everybody at this party, and there were about 60 people, were anti-Trumpers. So that was kind of fun. I want them to be Trumpers, but they're not. So, so we survived. We're down here.
By the way, your lighting is great there. You're going to have to just go to the hotel every week just to get this lighting.
I usually spend a lot. I actually spend a lot of. Yeah, well, I'm unlike some people. We won't name names. Can put together sort of like a MacGyver. I can put together packages with whatever I have. So I'm actually using cellophane and a wire and carrier pigeons to transmit tonight.
Sounds good to me, but it looks. I'm serious. It looks great.
No, well, you know what it is, Brian. All joking aside, it really is pretty cool for anybody who's trying to do what we do. This is perfect lighting. I'm sitting at a desk in a hotel room, and it's a very modern. It's a Holiday Inn, which is, you say, well, no, this is. I don't think doesn't really have that new room smell, but it can't be more than 3 years old. And what they've done, they have the desk low, and then they have the television up on another separate platform, and a light raised up. So it really makes it a perfect.
I'm telling you, the lighting is.
Lighting system.
Got a lot of dynamic range there. It's just
right.
really, really good.
And actually, again, what's interesting, usually I use, different cameras and things, and I'm just using my computer tonight. I'm not running through a mic. I'm not running through anything. So the lighting, of course, you got to remember too that, compared to you, I'm pretty good looking. So.
Well, I'll give you that. I've never
So,
been
I mean,
good.
you know,
I was good looking when I was a kid.
yeah, relative. Listen, Joe Biden's the president. Donald Trump isn't. But Brian, I know you, and I think you are a person who looks at a situation realistically, and certainly we have a ton of things to worry about. Actually, one of the things I thought was interesting, the party kind of a theme was, which I think is a theme for all of us. We can take a little breather now. We did, but now we got to get back to work because I mean, there's things coming at us from every damn side. Um, Now, here's an interesting thing too about how politics works. So Jeff and Scott are members of the I don't know the official name, but I'm going to call it like the Roanoke um, Democratic Club, and it's Scott and Jeff live on a lake in a town I don't know called something, small town, but beautiful lake. I mean, they have a beautiful home, and a number of these people live there. But the Democratic Club, kind of took the time off, and I was talking to a couple. I said, well, normally we wouldn't get together until the candidates are nominated. They have a governor coming up in 2022, and but they said, we're just gonna start now, if nothing else, to keep our spirits up. Not to do anything, but news can still shock. And the other thing I will say before I relinquish the floor to you is, again, as I do every week, spent some time in D.C. this week, and it really is amazing. Went in on Sunday with a couple who had just gotten married. Seems this was a theme this week. People celebrating marriages and not a young couple who lived next to us who had been out there protesting every night, or not every night, but many nights. He's just got finished. He's studying for the bar now. They had their legal degrees. And that was the first time they'd visited the White House, the White House area since Donald Trump had vacated. And just the look on their face, it was like they were in another world because I don't want to say each week, but slowly the White House is, opening back up. Talked to one of the Secret Service agents there, and they're in phase 3 of a 5-part. And when they get to part 5, you'll be able to walk right back up to the main fence, the higher fence that they put in. So we're almost back to normalcy. Wasn't that the word, the Hoover thing? But it's while it's normalcy there, it's certainly still not normal. So, Brian, a question I like to ask you is, what the hell are you worried about this week? Or I shouldn't say worried, that's got a negative connotation.
No, you can say
what are you
that.
concerned about this week?
Now, this is going to sound really perhaps inane, but it was funny what Trump said about this thing that he's going to take over the presidency in August. Something about that really bothers me. Now, you think it's crazy. But you see,
I do think it's crazy,
of
Brian.
course
But
it's
I
crazy.
know, I understand.
But remember, we have to remember what his audience is. What is your audience? What is your target market? What's your audience? And to me, it seems to be this call to action. It's because these people are off the hook, and then they'll make something up. They'll make the prophecy come true and say, okay, we've had enough of this, and he's in legal jeopardy. So the only way he gets out of it is to become president again. You see what I'm saying?
Good point, Brian. I mean, you're absolutely right.
Me. And it seems, while this is going on, we have Joe Manchin playing word games with reporters, and that's getting me sick. I just like to vomit. I don't see anything that Biden can do. I know he's frustrated. He's doing what he can do, aside from, as we said last week, going badass and actually, I don't know, you have to kind of threaten them the way that they've been threatening us. I know this, I don't want to make anybody think that I'm going to be taking actions or doing like this. But Dave, I've said, if I were president, and Ronnie even, said, in this case, she said you'd probably be the right guy at this moment in time. I would say to the Republicans, I'm not playing games with you, okay? And you may have all the guns, okay? And you may even have some of the military. But I swear to Christ that if you guys don't take me seriously, I'll put those missiles straight up and have them come straight down because I've already been to hell. and I'll appreciate you going there like immediately. I'm not mean hell is hell, but you know what I
I
mean.
know what you mean.
I mean,
Right.
I would just like with global warming, it looks like the Arctic is probably going to the ice cap is probably going to melt the end of September or next year. It doesn't look good. If there's any ice left this year, it's going to be very, very little. So at this point, I almost look forward to it because look, that the hell with everything. Just I want to see them suffer. Okay, I know it's going to be 150 degrees or 200 degrees when all this shit goes down, but I want to watch them go down while I go down, and I'll actually die happy. So I think you almost have to be serious and say, okay, you want to play this game. I'm going to up it geometrically. Okay, and if you don't think I'm going to do it, I'll start choosing a state first. Now this is, again, I'm just playing word games here, but I think at some point, if there is nowhere you can go, you have to start going full rush on people. I'm sick of them.
Well,
And
certainly
you can understand my every.
Oh,
There
no,
are
no,
times
no,
when he tells the
of
truth.
course.
He is instigating, just like January 6th. He's instigating something with August.
Right. Well, let's look at that. Absolutely. Now, if he hadn't caused so much damage, directly responsible in some form for 500,000 American families losing a member, right? I mean, yes, that's part of his legacy.
Right.
Coming on January 6th within a few moments of, I'm echoing again, Brian, on mine. Thanks.
Sorry.
That's okay. Coming within a few minutes of what could have been the biggest tragedy in the capital, if not American history. So let's just go back to January 6th for a moment, which was the last time really Trump was in charge. Now you say, right? There's no question. If you listen to what the man said, he said, basically, go up there, my lovelies, and do your thing, and I'll be right there with you. That's what he said. Okay. Now, I've studied language for a long time, and certainly I'm not always perfect, but that tells me that he was telling people to do something, one, that was indeed illegal. Echoing again, Brian.
No, that's this one will not echo anymore. I got it down. I had to add some.
No, that's fine. It bothers, it doesn't, might not even go out, but it makes me, I have a hard enough time thinking, let alone doing that. So let's look at what that remark does. Number one, it's just amazing that it comes from the president of the United States. Okay. I mean, that's just astounding. We've had 44 presidents before him. Some of them were outstanding. Some of them were pretty damn bad. Nixon, you always say Nixon or George W. Bush, but if you go back in history, there were some really bad ones. A long list of bad presidents, but nobody ever did anything like that. So number one, it's amazing to come from a president. Number two, to urge a takeover of the government. That's what, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. That was inconceivable. Inconceivable. Now, people go, I knew it's going. No, you didn't. It was inconceivable. Now, once Trump became there, anything became conceivable. The next thing is, I thought, I really did, and man, I've been wrong. I keep thinking he can't really believe that. And now let's bring it up to the August thing now. And you're absolutely right. I'm not so sure that he doesn't believe in some way that a recount in one state, Arizona, which will be totally discounted no matter what they find now,
Correct.
because they've done so many illegalities there, is going to somehow give him the presidency, and he really believes it. I think what I'm learning, without being next to him, is that he has an unbelievable ability to believe fantasy if it makes him look good. He's got people in his ear. Stephen Miller, the list goes on, right? The Pillow Man, who are saying, yeah, I mean, and I'm sure those, hey, yeah, boss, that was stolen from you. No, it wasn't. Okay. But so I think he's looking for that reinforcement. So what does that mean in August? You're absolutely right, Brian. There's going to be some amount of 74 million people. We don't know how many. 74 million people wanted him to be president who still want him to be president. We don't know how many. And I think what will happen is that it won't happen, but he'll do just like those crazy, end of days evangelical prophet, preacher, priest do. Remember, I can't remember how long ago it was, but there was the whole group went up to the mountains. It was in Washington because it was the end of the world. And then the company said, oh man, I misread the calendar. Wow. And the people stayed with him. Like, no. So I don't think, first of all, I'm not the least bit worried about Donald Trump becoming president until 2024. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I think we all need to be concerned about what his followers can do. Now, I don't want to get ahead of us, Brian. We've talked about this a lot on the show, and I'm on this side. You're not. It's not really a different side. It's just inevitably what would happen. Nothing has changed my view that there will not be a civil war like the war that we saw in 1861 to 1865. And later on the show, if you want to go into why I believe that, I'll do that. What I do believe is there will be guerrilla warfare, and it will be directed at federal institutions. It will be directed maybe
institutions.
State. Well, I'm saying, state institutions, federal institutions, Democratic type endorsements, and perhaps at individuals. Both
I'm worried about
Democrats,
AOC. AOC.
Well, I'm talking about. Well, I mean, I think Pelosi is a target.
Yes.
I think AOC is a target. Obviously, Mr. Pence was a target, no question about that.
He wants to take himself off the target list. That's for sure.
Certainly, Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney. There's right now, there's 6 Republicans that are traitors in the GOP's eyes. 6 Republican senators, I should say, and 10 House members. And basically, what is their sin? They are saying that the election was not stolen and that Donald Trump should be president. No, and they're saying no to that. So we're in for the long haul with Mr. Trump. And what I fear along those lines, Brian, is the fact that as we continue to focus on Trump, and we need to, it goes way beyond him now. It goes way beyond him. And that's something that I was wondering, what is this? What is Trump doesn't really have that much power now. The people whose names we bring up every week, from Marcia Taylor Greene to Lisa Boebert, the woman you want to see naked with her gun and just her high heels on, to Matt Gaetz, to Mo Brooks, and the list just goes on ad infinitum of these people. They're committed. Trump is no longer a person. Trumpism, which is which is the American word for the American fascism, right, authoritarian, is now the Republican Party has no platform other than that. No platform other than that. And you'll talk to people and say, well, I don't think all the 74 million will. We don't know how many will do it. I mean, I feel relatively certain in saying he hasn't gained support, right? But I don't know if anybody else, has left that group. And I bring it up because I just think people say, "Oh, Dave, you repeat yourself." Well, yeah, some things need to be repeated. Marcia Taylor Greene, who has a tenuous grip on reality, if at all, raised $3.2 million from small contributors in her first 3 months in office. So, Brian, I'm not going to poo-poo what you just said. Anyone who does that would be foolish.
Right, after January 6th, you have to.
Well, absolutely.
You can't say certain things. And by the way, I think I mentioned on a show long ago, not too long ago, but somewhere in December, that Ronnie's sister knew somebody who sent a text to her saying something big's going to be going down soon, and
Yeah.
a lot of people know about it. And it did happen. It did
Oh, no.
happen. And you know, I posted myself in on Facebook something to the effect, who thinks something else is going to come up, and this was before January 6th, you know, that he has something in store for us. And that's the one thing that I think he really does. So when he says August, he doesn't want to look wrong. So there's got to be some kind of reason to make.
Well, you know, and you wonder, okay, you really wonder, and okay, you know, does he even have a grip on how dangerous his words can be? I don't
Well,
think he does.
Michael Flynn doesn't seem to worry, unless he feels he's pressured. Then he walks it back a little bit.
Well, look, as I say, but you know, yes, August will be interesting, and I hate to use that word because people may die in August. Something that kind of reassures me, but I can't say it won't happen again.
And why did he choose August?
You know what? That's something. If anybody out there, when Brian and I are talking, I'll research it after. I mean, I know the comment.
I mean, why was it? You know, maybe it's because first of all, I could see why he wouldn't choose September, because people get back to work, and people are getting back to work. August is vacation month, so that's the only thing I'm trying to wonder.
Or, and this is just wild speculation. So I'm basing it on nothing other than my time in D.C. You know, August, Washington D.C., Brian, shuts down. It really does.
That's a problem too, right? Because they.
So what happens is that's a news vacuum to fill, right? They're not doing anything.
Right.
A Supreme Court is done, you know, and I think maybe by the end of this month we're going to have some discussions. I'm kind of really worried about a couple of decisions they're going to come up with that are cases that they're going to decide. I mean, we're just going to announce their decisions. So you know, if you would ask me, can you come up with any reason? Short of really looking, you know, and finding out, is there another reason?
The only thing I can think of is the time of the year. I mean, it's the only.
I think I'm telling you that because August is okay. Let me go back to my journalism. Journalism is so different now than when I was in it. But one thing that was always true: if you didn't want your story to get good play, right, you're a politician, you say it on Friday at 4:30. All right. Mm-hmm. Even later if you can, but you know, usually the working day ends at 5 because that's the weekend, and people don't realize this. Newspapers, you know, a lot of their sections are set on Saturday, right? I mean, they only open one page, so I mean, you know, you don't have a lot of room. So Saturday's even better. Friday is good. Saturday is better. It's probably the best day, as they say. So the weekend to release news, and the same holds true in August. Because, but a little different. Reporters are working, but no government officials are. I mean, no elected officials are. And they're also, which is interesting, they're back in their districts. So I suppose if Trump were mad at 1 or 2 or 10 or 15 of them, it's a good time, you know, to get back to them. But I'm going to dismiss something that I said earlier because it made sense, and I just got to learn you can't say things that make sense. I thought a lot of Republicans were just afraid for their lives or afraid from no. Mm-mm. That may be a very small part of it. They're true believers now. They really are. They've looked at the reality. They can't win.
Right. They know they can't win. I mean,
So
we've been through it. They cannot win. Period.
Not
And maybe not even in
unless-
their own states at some point.
Well, certainly. I mean, you know, and states are constantly
If
realigning.
they lose Texas, forget it.
Well, you got Texas on the line, Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina.
But I'm just saying,
Now-
once you get Texas in the
well, I
Democratic
understand that. And
column,
Texas
you're
is
done.
But you know, unless by some surge, the central states get even worse, and suddenly Pennsylvania. I mean, you know, that Midland from there's Philadelphia, and then a little spot in Harrisburg, and then Pittsburgh. And That the rest of it is a southern state.
But
in
isn't
terms
that
of
really the way that kind of works in a lot of northeastern
well,
states?
I mean, well, what happens, Brian, is though that's where the things though that the Republicans can do. That's why gerrymandering is so uh, dangerous, right?
Right.
If any, I mean, you can look at some. One I just remember because it affected me. I mentioned it before the show, but I think it bears again right here what they could do. Georgia was Republican when I lived there. They could control the state, and John Lewis's congressional district, right, was like a shape you can't even imagine. Guess what was everywhere where his shape was? Black. All the white was carved out. It made absolutely no sense. He and I mean, one day, like I said, he was in the museum a lot. I mean, we weren't friends, but we'd have some discussions, and he knew that I was moving down there. And he said, by rights, I should be your congressman in Dunwoody. But that was once white. Now, what's happened in the South is that the suburbs have become more Democrat, or certainly less receptive to Trump. And I think that's the battleground. I mean, that's going to be the battleground for the 21st century, the suburbs, because the cities are only going to get more Democratic. The country, meaning the country folk, the mountain folk, where the hell I am this tonight, is only going to get more Republican. So the only place for any swing, right, is the suburbs. But yeah, do you have anything? Do you have anything else? I mean, anything else? Because that one, I can't allay your fears. I can't. I'd love to. All right.
No, that's
I'd love to.
where it is right now. I mean,
I do want to say one. I'm sorry. I do want to say one last thing I forgot. It's not really allaying your fears, but this. You know how you kind of hold on to something. I know you sometimes. I don't say poo-poo, but a hope or a faith, and I don't know if it's that. I'm just saying, when you think about the opportunity that the Trumpian insurrectionists had to take over the Capitol, do damage, and do some of the things that they threatened to do. And they really didn't do anything except shit, piss in the hall, steal a couple things, grab a computer, terrorize a few people, and kill a few people. Now, I'm not dismissing. Like, I thought one of the most hideous things recently, the mother of one of the officers killed went and pleaded to the
it
Republicans.
was Michael Sicknick's mother, I guess.
Right. Said, please, for my son, for the country, let's investigate. Now, why don't the Republicans want to investigate? Very simple. They'll be investigated. Not people.
Right. This is what Hawley, when he was questioning, he started asking about the cell phones because he knows himself that they're going to be looking at his cell phone. What he was doing, what communication he was in. That son of a bitch. He's another one I haven't talked about in about a month, but he's a son of a bitch.
But what's the other thing that we have to keep in mind, is two things constantly. Okay, one is that justice in any form moves very slowly once it goes to government or the courts. Okay, that's number one. So, it's clear there should have been instantaneous punishment for those who took it over. There should be instantaneous punishment for Donald Trump, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't move, that way. It just doesn't. And we have to keep in mind that journalism, they focus on one angle. So what angle did they focus on, which was big? The congressional probe, right? And as well they should. But because they spend so much time focusing on that, they forget that there are other avenues. It's still not foreclosed that the District of Columbia will bring Trump and the rioters up on charges because it's also their people were involved. There are other avenues to go. So it's not, it's not over till it's over. Yeah, Yogi Berra, that sounded stupid, but it's true here. However, during this time, it's very, very unsettling. Anything else on your concern plate this week?
Not that much. We had, and I'm going to ask you a thing or two myself, Dave, if you don't mind. But
sure.
Before I do that, just general comment, and you and I have discussed this privately. things are going really, really well with our group page. We've had an increase in membership the last month. It's been going up again. Just I don't know what I personally think. It has something to do with Facebook, with the algorithms. At some point, they
Well, you know what,
show our
Brian?
thumbnail more. I don't know.
I mean, I don't want to give away your secrets, but since you've stopped wearing underwear on this show, I think if you look at the timing, every time it goes up, and then somehow Ronnie or you put your
It
underwear
must
back
be
on.
my movie when I was a kid, when I was 3.
Maybe that. Who knows? Who
You know,
knows? No, if we could figure that out.
my old self was a big star. But seriously speaking now, Dave,
Right.
and I'll dance around a few of this. We had some issues with commentary and posts, and every once in a while, from well-meaning members, we will get people who report fellow members, and we've told them, you've told them specifically in a video, if you have a problem with somebody's post, first come to us so we can look at it. And we had some posts that were reported that were what I felt were innocuous posts. You felt were innocuous.
Well, let me. I mean, I'm just going to jump in here because I handle. Yeah, I'm not going to tonight name the person. Okay, so people don't
Right.
ask the questions.
This is not a personal thing we're doing.
No. This is a thing. Whereas this is the way we look at it. Anyone who is a member of Divided We Stand has the right, to say anything or be upset about any post. All we're asking is please let us know. Now, it can't be a cover up because if we don't satisfy you with our answers, right, you just go to Facebook. But here's the danger. And of course, everybody who's listening tonight is no way involved in this. But, this is what we deal with. The problem is, let me do it this way. Okay. A lot of what I have to do, I do it anecdotally. I'm not a big fan of data. I know data is good and it supports. But, okay, so when I was a teacher, Brian, I learned very early on, if I had a problem in my classroom, and I had very few, but every once in a while you have one. Once you took it to the administration,
Right.
you lost control of
Right.
everything.
Right.
And this is similar here.
It made it worse sometimes.
Well, it always does. Not any time. I mean, basically, I never had a time. I think I took 4 problems in 20 years in the classroom, and every time I couldn't stop it, so I had to. But the penalties or what was done was absolutely worse and made the problems greater. And that's kind of the analogy here with Facebook. And that ties into something I want to say later, so I don't want to say a lot about it. But here's the thing. If a member of Divided We Stand sends a comment off, also remember, you're not dealing with real people in Facebook. You're dealing with AI a lot of times, their version of artificial intelligence. And it's just the idea of, let me give people example for that. Numerous times, and I've restored the posts, numerous times, well, I'll give 2 examples. One was someone did post something that was a lie. And what they said, Brian, which you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
This can't be true, can it? Well, that changes the whole context of the post,
Of the
right?
post, correct.
That's a legitimate question. This can't be true. And that post was pulled, and I put it right back out again, because that's one of the things we're here for, because we're dealing with such outlandish things. Who knows what to believe? That's one side of it. Another is there are, I guess I'm going to call them buzzwords, that they look for. And once they see them, they being the AI bots, who look at it, they just pull it. What I'm saying is a human can put something in context, right? A machine can't yet. Someday, maybe they will, but not yet, can they? And certainly Facebook is as it well should be, which I'm going to talk about at some length tonight, beleaguered and besieged organization right now who's,
Good news. We got Keith
hey,
back.
Keith. Hey, good. Glad to hear from you. Do you just want to talk sometime? Give me a shout out. I've always, I always want to. You watched my grandchildren sort of for me who are still in Australia and having the time of their lives. And Keith, I will say this. I'm sure you have, and anybody else from Australia out there, has some problems with their country. I think this is very telling, Brian, and very meaningful for me. My granddaughter and my grandson do not want to come back to America. Now, for different reasons. All right. We'll go with Owen first. Owens really likes Australian school system because he doesn't have to do homework. And yet his work is so much better. And athletically, he's the athlete, and he's just having the time of his life. I mean, he got to do, as I mentioned, he got to play Australian rules football. He's playing soccer. Brian, I hope someday that I get there. I won't get there while they're there. They have an amazing school system. A lot of things are good. Now, Audrey is the political child, and she is so disappointed with America. And you will be glad to hear this, and so will Sandy and all the other people that are really working their butts off to try to save this planet if it can be saved. Audrey likes the fact that the students there are learning about what to do. Of course, their forests are burning, their coral reef. I mean, they're besieged probably more than America. I mean, once again, Brian,
Well, climate change
America,
wise, absolutely. Yeah.
well, once again, America kinds of skates for now, right? I mean, you got a senator goes in with a snowball and says, "See, nothing's warming here." You got the president of the United States. It's just a Chinese.
I was thinking about that
conspiracy.
today too. Yeah, Imhoff or whatever his name. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. Oh, you should, Keith. You should. In fact, here's an interesting thing, and kind of off running about my family. I'm not doing that, but I think it's very interesting because it reflects on America and it reflects on the divide that we have here. Audrey says she's 13, and she says she's constantly besieged with friends her age saying, "What is wrong?" Like, Audrey tried to describe to them the active shooter drills, that we have. And she said they just had this look on horror on their face. And so she's very disappointed with two groups, America itself and her friends. And they will return to, when they come back, they will return to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And, I was talking to her, she said, "Grandpa, I don't know. I mean, they didn't wear masks, and like, they're still for Trump." And, and I said, "Well, honey, I mean, I can't tell you what to do." I said, but it gives you a chance. I mean, you can't change for them. So just be prepared. When you come back, you will lose friends, right? I think everybody on our side, meaning the side of sanity, has lost friends in this. But that's the price that we're paying in this war against insanity. Right. So these things that, and what I like about it, I pick on you and I say, "Oh, the worry word." But no, I mean, the other thing I like to push you on concerns for too is, like I said, I always use you to speak for the general populace, if you will. And, the one thing we can't afford to do is get complacent. Now, that's why this week I liked it very much. I believe it was Thursday, I think. There was a first, which you could term loosely, anti-Biden protest in D.C. Some environmentalists went out and said, "Hey, you're kind of twiddling your thumbs, right?" And I think that's good. I mean, when we say Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump, I mean, I think that's a statement that's absolutely true. But is Joe Biden perfect? No. And I think he needs to be reminded. The difference is Richard Nixon or Donald Trump, if they could, would put those names into an enemy's book and run right with it. I think Joe Biden will digest it, and try to figure out how maybe he can move faster. I don't know. But certainly, I mean, so yeah, that's there. You were searching for something there, Brian. Were you looking?
Well, I was just wanting to show people as we were talking about Facebook, and I want to make sure everybody knew where we were coming from, because we have luckily we not only have more members but more active members,
right?
And it does go in phases. So we're getting some reports on fellow members, and even posts that I posted. Some people are very pedantic, and they look at little minutiae. So if you have an entire paragraph posted, they might say, "Well, then we can't be like the Republicans," and it's all the way you interpret it. I can't sterilize everything in my speech, and that's what I think.
Nor should
made
you.
Me upset. Not at the person personally, but I get it. You don't want to have "quote unquote" fake news or anything like that. But if the majority of it's right and the other is just in waiting to be right, I see no harm, and I don't want a pedantic, perspective from people. This is not about being perfect here. It's about just being human and being ethical and being knowledgeable about the situation. And when you make the post, it has to make the point, and it can't just outright say something like, last night Matt Gaetz was arrested. You can't do that. You can't say that, nor would I do that. But if the people say he's been busted,
the odds in Vegas say he will be.
Soon, right? He soon will be. But I'm saying, if the meme and it's a meme, if the meme says, he's busted for being a hypocrite, essentially, to take that word busted, we know, anybody in our Facebook page, the membership knows that we know he hasn't been quote unquote busted yet.
Well, yeah. Well, but you know what? Interesting use, because busted is not necessarily definitely arrested, right? Yes, we use that.
They're
a lot.
caught in something,
and there you are. And certainly the fact, until he's innocent until proven guilty, but the fact that certainly underage sex, certainly paying for sexual favors, all kinds of things, and drugs involved in all that, it does make it somewhat suspect that this holier than thou, really bad haircutted, looks like a crazed evangelical preacher the first time I saw him.
right?
Started out by saying, let's test people for drugs. Well, maybe Matt, maybe you weren't doing them then, but maybe you were. And there and off we go. Now, I really, I mean, this is not a new battle for me in terms of wording. I'm a writer when I'm not doing this, or I'm a podcaster when I'm not doing this, or I'm a lecturer when I'm not doing this. So I'm aware of words, but it's all about, it's about audience. It's also about where the content appears. And online, a lot of times, it's for speed. So a lot of my posts, I'm sure people have seen them. I just shoot them out, don't look at them for a minute, see a comment on it, and I go back and edit them for a misspelling. I'm not going to, I have to own up to it. And I've got friends, a couple of them, who are English teachers or writers.
Oh, that's got to mention. Yeah, how'd you do that? Well, you've never been worried about the typos.
I said, you know what? The idea of it is, I wouldn't do that if it were my doctoral dissertation. I wouldn't do that if it was a lecture at the Smithsonian. I wouldn't even do that if it were my classroom. But online, the ideas get the thought out sometimes, right? And so there are times when I know better than to use Y-O-U-R when you want Y-O-U apostrophe R-E.
Right.
But it's like, is that really the cardinal sin? Or is it the fact of the speed of getting the idea out? So I want to come back and emphasize what you said. Obviously, just so they know the process. Usually what happens, for anybody who's interested in it, Brian will see things first and then contact me.
Right.
Because, I said, that's your job. And then I'll look at it and read it. And I know from I've looked at it every way I can sideways. I've turned it upside down. I've turned myself upside down. And there is nothing, not a zilch, zero, anything that I could see that was the least bit offensive. Now, having said that, I might miss something, right? So again, if that person or persons who see that says it to me, there might be something there. So I would not, it's not like we're trying to cover up anything.
And I have removed some of my own posts that people have complained about. But at some point,
see, I would never.
I just don't think it's necessary in some cases. Even my own, I'm not going to change that.
Oh no, and I've said things, very rarely, but a couple times, especially in the early days. Now, if I offend somebody who's a Trumper, I don't care. But back when I did, I think it's there. But again, so let's leave it like this. Anybody out there, I don't think there's a person whose name I've seen tonight or follows us fairly
Nobody
regularly
here
on this show.
is any of the
Yeah.
people we're
So
talking
we're
about.
not talking about you. And remember the first
And we
couple
still like
times
them. It's just that
well,
Yeah,
I'm going to reserve judgment on that. You may like them, and when I find out more,
well, they're liberal. As far as we know, they're liberal. That's,
Well, yeah, but there's a difference. Now, again, let's draw this line. We're not saying you can't criticize something that Biden's done, in the sense that those protesters went out there and said, basically what they said is, Joe, you said you were going to do some things, and you're not moving fast enough. That's legitimate. Same thing on our page. But what we don't want to get into is, a personal war between people. That's not our page. Really argumentative is not our page. Do you want to debate? I'll debate anybody. I don't care. But not on this page, simply because this is a page. And it's interesting, Brian. I hadn't really thought about this until you made me just think about it now. And we should do this one time. We're going to need a conversation of how this page has evolved. I don't mean how you started and I came in and we've had people who jumped in from time to. I'm talking about it really has evolved, and its purpose is different now. But one of our purposes for those who are newcomers was basically just kind of a place we could come of like minds and share some like ideas, right? I mean, not a page to debate, still not.
right. It is
not
a partisan page, and we get.
Yeah, well, yeah,
if
I
you're
mean,
going to rail on Joe Biden constantly, as if no matter what happens, you're against him, and you make him out like Trump. We're not going to allow that because there's a big difference between Trump and Biden. There's a big difference.
And the other thing, I have given up reading comments of posts that I don't know the people or I don't know. Brian, when you go to these, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Look, a Salon article or, Washington, people just, there's inane comments. There's, people start battling each other. It gets nowhere. It's just terrible. And we don't have that on the page. And so what we're trying to do is make sure it never happens. Or the other thing is, and we haven't had that, but we've had it a couple times. Let's pick a topic that's going to be very controversial. I'm going to go out on a limb here. UFOs are going to be very controversial in the next, as they've always been. And you can believe, okay, let me try it this way. You can believe that UFOs are real and still believe that Donald Trump didn't win the presidency. And you can believe that UFOs are real and that Donald Trump did win the presidency, right? The difference is we know that Donald Trump didn't win the presidency. It wasn't taken from him. It wasn't stolen from him. UFOs, we have not identified. We've not done anything, but now suddenly, and you've seen it, Brian, we've all seen it. It's sneaking more in. It's sneaking more in. It's actually becoming a talk in Congress. They're asking for, military commissions to look into this. And it's not, it's kind of bipartisan because you got them on both sides. President Obama last week, came out and said, yeah, there's some things up there we're not real sure about. Well, if anybody knew, the president would get these reports. And while this will be classified, and I don't understand why it is, because people need to know. We're still arguing over the closed information on the Kennedy assassination.
Well, I think the reason why they're going to close it, if they do, is because if it is a Chinese or Russian involvement in
that's
the
true.
software or whatever in these jets,
there is some things, and we don't know.
Because you can't tell them that because then the Russians know, hey, they're on to what we're doing here.
Well, and the other thing would be, once upon a time, right, very few people, UFOs, they thought they were crazy, people who did that. They're not. There are phenomena, and that's the word they're using now, unidentified aerial phenomena that we can't rationally explain. We don't know what it is. The gamut runs from actual, beings to some kind of anomaly, to computer readings, to computer hackings. You've got pilot sighting. Who knows? It could be we have a mysterious aircraft that nobody knows. The Chinese, the Russians. I probably, and I'm not making. I shouldn't pick an African country. Who could I pick on? Luxembourg. okay, good country, probably doesn't have that, right? So they're the two things that let me sum up, and then you come back and sum up what you want to do on this issue. First of all, I take it very seriously in terms of protecting with a small p our family, okay? And one of the things I don't like when somebody reports somebody else, and I look at it and I can't find any reason why they reported them. So what's the solution to that? Let me know. Let Brian know. We'll look at it. We'll get back to you. If you don't like, go directly to Facebook. I have no problem with that. But that's the procedure. Now, the last warning I want to issue.
There's something going on in the chat room. They're talking about, Biden.
I've been watching it, but I just want to finish because this is so
I just like
important. I mean,
Anthony's
not to
comment. That's how
everybody
I
out
feel.
there, but we want it on the record, as you know. Because so many, because of the things I'm involved with, I probably deal more with, not deal directly with Zuckerberg or Facebook, but I mean, I'm more involved with that. And what's going to happen is, they, meaning Twitter, Pinterest, the whole group of things, Snapchat, it doesn't matter which one, are going to start getting more of a crackdown. And why they're going to do that? Why they're going to do that is very simple. They don't want to be investigated because right now they're kind of above, they're higher than Congress, right? Because it's really the last, what would you say, non-regulated agency. TV's regulated, radio's regulated, internet and social media not. So they want to try to police themselves so they can go and say,
That's what
"Oh,
Russia's
what a
trying to
good
do
jump."
too. Russia and the Republicans.
Right. And but what I'm saying is you don't want to get them involved because look, I you know it, I know it, our people know it. I don't trust the government to do right all the time. And I certainly don't trust big corporations to do right all the time. But you know who I do trust people? I trust Brian Weinstein, even if he makes a mistake, to do it right. It's his page. I'm not ditching it. I'm saying, so just come to us. And then if you don't like it, take it to the higher court. And that's fine.
Right.
So anything else you want to say before?
No, that's just, I just wanted to say that because that's one thing that I notice. It's not a horrible thing, but it's just kind of like it's an in-house thing that you have to deal with. And
there you are. That's a very good term. You do your in-house cleaning, not keeping your dirty laundry in, because it's not dirty. Look, let's be honest, okay? We'll end the UFO because that'll go on all night. You don't know if they're UFOs or not, right, Brian? Quite honestly. I mean, you don't know.
I don't look. All I know
didn't say
is
do you
this.
think. I said, do you know? Do you have evidence one way or the other?
I have no evidence that they are UFOs or are not.
Correct. Neither do I. So it really doesn't become real meaningful until they land.
Right.
If they never land,
They start
it's
talking.
not really a big thing. Okay. Now people say, "Oh no, we need to be prepared." Prepared for what?
Now, if you're asking my opinion, I think
interested.
everything we
Not
have there is
interested at all in your
terrestrial. I don't
opinion.
see
Not cutting you
anything
off.
that possibly can go that far distance. You and I have agreed on this privately, so folks,
I'm not-
I'm
yeah,
going
but
to
I'm-
spill
I'm
the
just saying
beans.
that's
We both,
still-
Dave and I both agree that
Oh,
the
I
distances
know.
are so great, and
But-
the laws of physics right now,
But you know what? Now,
it's so
here's the
unlikely.
other thing. You say the laws of physics, and I like what you said right now. New things are discovered every day, right? Now, that's cliched, no. But, new sciences come in. There's a theory that these ships, and the reason they don't visit us, I mean, it's a bizarre theory, but who's to say, are from so far into the future. It's like a form of time travel. Now, we say we can't, and we can't right now with what we know. But you know what? In George Washington's time, they thought that you could cure diseases by taking the blood away. So, I mean, who knows what we'll find out later. But
And I think
yeah,
what Sandy's
tra-
kind of right, though. I think that it is a distraction from what's really going on.
But see, I'm not going to disagree. I'm just saying, I do find the one thing interesting. Growing up, when in Roswell times, and maybe they came to celebrate my birth, they'd say maybe I was like Jesus. The wise men came in the store that year. In 1952, they were supposed to be in Washington, D.C. I mean, literally, and they're there. There's an exhibit at the National Archives that talks about it. I mean, they were seen. But the problem is, and then I will agree with Sandy this. Certainly, it's not a problem that we need to spend too much time on.
Right. Until
at
something,
all.
I might be much more concerned about the Mars rover and what's
Or
going on there. You wanna
things
talk
that
about
are
space.
real.
We are the
whether,
true aliens.
whether it's systemic
We're the
racism,
real
whether
ones.
it's economic inequality, whether it's the disdain and hate for anything that people determine the other, whether it's it's not girls going wild now, it's Christianity going wild now in
Certainly has
America.
gone wild. Yeah.
So you got all that.
So listen, Dave.
yeah.
I know I appreciate you asking me the questions there. I don't know that I have a specific question other than, I know you've, on your own time, you've had things going on, and I'm just going to ask you to update and what's headed for you. Are you going to be at large still, or what? I don't know.
Well, no. I mean, it is interesting though. I was talking tonight, as I said, came from this party, and thank you for this show, Brian. I'm sure you've been to these parties. It was very nice, but I knew Jeff and Scott, who were the couple, right, that the party was for. I knew Scott's mother. I knew Scott's brother.
Now,
and I
Scott's a
knew
member.
one of my
Is Jeff a member of our?
They both are. Both are very, and both members. Actually, Scott's mom, Lynn Sayre.
Right.
So,
Right.
which is, and if you knew her, I mean, you look at her. Not that you'd be a Trump, you say, "Oh, that's my."
And
She
Scott
is
gave
very
me
much-
good advice about the page when
a
we
lot
first
of times.
started.
And-
He really helped out.
Right.
He
And
was the
I-
one who was instrumental in saying that this really needs to
And
be partisan.
another member was there who I was still one of Scott's best friends from childhood. Kathy Couch, now Kathy Nikas, and but after that, I didn't know anybody. It's nice to meet some people. Food was good. They had a great band, one of the best bands I've heard in a long, long time. Tremendous versions. If anybody's interested in music, back to back of two of the great soul songs I think of all time. What's Going On, which is not easy for a four-piece band to pull off, and a jazzy version of The Thrill Is Gone by B.B. King. So I was there, but it was time to go. Plus, as Judy said, they live on the longest, windingest roads in the mountain with no lights. So I'm glad to get back. But my point is, in a joking way of saying, now we're all coming out of the, in various places of the pandemic and the restrictions. And there'll be times that, you had I think you had a celebration today. Didn't
My wife's
Ronnie have a birthday?
We had a great. I actually
Yeah.
enjoyed her birthday more than she did. So great cake.
Yeah. Now
Grilling.
you couldn't have had that. You could have had that a couple months ago, right?
No, this was fantastic.
I couldn't have been,
It was.
I mean,
We
we did
it was a
certain
lot of fun.
So it will be interesting. But of course, the advantage that I do have, I suppose, if there is one, is living where I do. I've actually there were three stories I was kind of following this weekend. Actually, they're all kind of tied into what we were talking about. I even made a couple notes. I never do that, but I want to try to get to this. Okay, so let's kind of work, not in chronological. Let's jump in with the big one, which we've always saw some things up there. Donald Trump has been suspended from Facebook for 2 years. Okay. And here was the direct violation, because the direct violation, right, is implied in when he can return, because when that violation stops is when he can return. And Facebook ruled that he can be reinstated only if, and I quote from Facebook, the risk to public safety has receded. Before you fall asleep, I want to.
Okay. I'm just yawning. I need oxygen here.
I want to repeat that again. Facebook, who's no moral giant, said in direct words that the president was guilty of jeopardizing public safety. And why do I arrive at that conclusion? Because he can only be reinstated, as I said, quote, the risk to public safety has receded. Now, just a little brief history for those who don't know how we got there. Of course, There have been people, saying that Trump had free reign and Facebook should have pulled itself in. Well, look, Facebook has one thing, Brian. You know what they're interested in? Same thing Amazon is interested in. Same thing Google is interested in. Same thing.
Money and market domination.
You got it. There you are. And Facebook and Amazon and some of those have grabbed it, right? So what did they do? They did nothing, which is pretty good if you don't know what to do, right? And so Trump ran rapid, and then others ran rampant, and everybody's running rampant. And then Trump crossed the line. I mean, there's no question about that. He crossed the line probably in 2011 with his tweets, but certainly, the president of the United States, certainly from 2016 to 2020, no doubt about that. And so they said, well, I guess we got to come up with something. And Brian, what they came up with is an oversight board. Okay, what's that? They grab some experts, and they're a pretty impressive group of people who aware of free speech issues and legal issues. But that gets Larry. They are funded by Facebook, right? Which makes a Joe average person say, well, wait a minute, they're just a shill for Facebook. Now, I don't think they are. And I think their first decision kind of indicated that. So they looked at this Trump suspension, and they ruled two things. They said Trump may be suspended for what he did, but you have not, Facebook, laid out the reasons why that suspension should be permanent. And so what Facebook countered with is this idea of a 2-year ban. Of course, that put everybody who's involved in that situation, not necessarily you or me, but the people that are on the political side and Facebook side off and running. And I found this fascinating. Not surprising, just fascinating. During all this, the Pew Research, which I still think is probably the best research organization in America, the most valid, looked in this, and they said the basic question was very simple. Should Donald Trump be banned from Facebook for life? And here are the numbers. 50% said absolutely not. 49% said absolutely yes. And 1%, whatever happened to them, it happened to them. Now, let's look at that 50%. That does not mean that 50% believe that Trump was truthful or they support Trump. What that does mean, and I can see this, is they're worried if he can be banned, everybody could be banned. I share that concern, but here's the difference. He advocated clearly. I'm more concerned that he advocated violence, inspired violence, actually physically called for violence, than I am his lies. His lies are bad enough. So we get that. I hadn't looked for a while about, and again, I never do this to make you look stupid, Brian. It's basically saying I was shocked by this myself, and I looked it up. Do you have any idea, as of tonight, the approximate number of Facebook users, regular users worldwide?
I don't know. I would say over 1 billion. I know that.
A little bit over 1 billion, 3.45 billion. So if anybody out there, you, me, or Donald Trump, posts something, it can potentially reach and potentially influence 3.45 billion globally. Now, I love social media. I use social media, but it's like everything else. Used properly, it's great. Used improperly, it's bad. But it's more like a gun and a Bible than it is about lemonade. Lemonade can be used improperly, right? But nobody really suffers from it. But with a gun or a Bible or social media used improperly, a lot of people can. Now, Brian, you know a little bit about Mr. Donald. You think he took the decision well?
That's the great thing about it, Dave. I thought when I first heard it, people were saying, well, why do they only get 2 years on this and all that kind of crap?
We're going to come back to that in a moment.
It doesn't even matter. I mean, as long as it's more than a month he's pissed off, he needs it. He needs social media. I mean, it was free advertising for him, free publicity.
Well, let's look at what
now
Donald
he loses.
Right.
What you say,
Well, 3.5. An
3.5,
audience of
yeah.
now he didn't have 3.5 billion.
No, but it was cheap.
It's a large audience.
He didn't
right?
have the money.
And we'll get to that in a moment, too. Now, here's what your favorite president did. He called the decision, and now listen to this. This is his reason: an insult to the people who voted for him last year.
Yeah. So in other words, I'm going to bring everyone else in there.
You're couching that. It's the fact that you lied and called for an insurrection.
Right, but he was
You don't
smart
care-
though for him to say that because he riles up
Absolutely,
the
and
ignorant.
that's my point. I don't want people to do what I did in 2015 into 2016. I don't want people to underestimate Donald Trump. I thought he was a buffoon. I thought he couldn't. And he did.
Or don't
now-
underestimate the system itself. It's so screwed up
That
these
also-
kind of- what happened?
Now, here's his direct quote. You ready for this? Facebook shouldn't be allowed to get away with this censoring and silencing. Our country can't take this abuse anymore.
So in other words,
Now,
go ahead and
let's
take
look-
arms.
Let's break that down. First of all, it's clear that the former president of the United States does not understand censoring. Okay, the First Amendment says the government cannot censor. Anything else can be censored. Facebook could do whatever it wants. It's a private entity. I'm sure you've had it in your classroom. I used to love it. I get my students sometimes, Mr. Price, we'd be doing something. And I always try to bring something about the First Amendment in because I feel very strongly about it. They'd say, well, Mr. Price, we have, First Amendment rights here. We can say whatever you want. I said, you want to try it? What the hell is that? Oh, it was Stormy. Judy's in bed, and I really don't talk to Stormy when she's right here. I don't know who that was. So what happens is, that part is on, and silencing. This is what I love about the GOP misfits. They go on Fox News to say they're being silenced. No, that's just absurd. They're not silenced. The Washington Post.
Well, you and I know it's absurd, but the greater point is 75 million people are going to do all kinds of crazy shit, including the governors, which is really they've been the real problem in this whole mess.
And here's where it ties into just what you said. Our country sounds important, right? Our country. He's saying, no, it's Donald Trump's country in Donald Trump's mind. But he says our country can't take this abuse anymore. What abuse? Think about this. If Facebook can legally censor anyone they want, which they can, there's no abuse there. Now, what I always like, and you have to be a little skeptical of this, but one thing, ladies and gentlemen, pretty much, newspapers, I'm not talking about TV because they have a different thing, but newspapers really don't print much if they're not pretty sure it's right. So when you hear sources, everybody says, they say their name. No, they're not. But that's pretty accurate. And they describe, this really fits Trump. They described him, quote, as mad as hell. I could almost hear him say, I'm not going to take it anymore from network. And he's looking for ways as you and I speak tonight, looking for ways to attack Mark Zuckerberg personally and as a company. Well, here's what he came up with. Direct quote again. He said, Brian, when I'm president again, which I guess he's planning to be, there'll be no more dinners for Mark Zuckerberg and his wife in the White House, which he requested. Okay. Now, but here's the interesting thing, Brian, about that. That was the big news, right?
Right.
But here's the other thing. That came out of, as I mentioned before, this Facebook oversight group, which did its job. Okay. So at least in this case, they weren't shills for a company, even though their money is kind of comes from them. But they also said some other things, and Facebook did not act on this. They refused to say that the rioters used Facebook to organize, and they did. They did. All you have to do is read. You have to, just if you can read.
Just interrupt for one second. Isn't this kind
Sure.
of like? I'm going to get real raw on this. This isn't
Right.
more or less like as an analogy. Isn't this kind of like we have a good party going on, and you're an asshole, and because you're an asshole, you're not invited to the party. Now you're mad that you can't go to the party because you've in the past you've thrown beer, you piss on the floor and all the other kind of
Right.
shit, and nobody wants you to piss on the floor. You can go to your own, and so they're upset because they can't piss on the floor at somebody else's place. This is essentially what's going on here.
Well, I mean,
They
and
don't
I
like the
think,
fact they're not invited to what we do.
and I think
Normal.
what disturbs me the most. Um, okay, let's start with the statement: we're all human. We're all we're all human. We're all flawed. Right? But I really think that the president of the United States is not above the law, but I think should be held to a higher standard than any other person in America. Right? He is the president, or she, hopefully soon she is the president, or as we had with 45, it is the president of the United States. And what we have, again, is the mere fact that he made those statements is frightening, frightening. Facebook didn't do its whole job. So that's the first story. Now, in a related story, this is good news for us. And anytime it's bad news for Trump, that's good news for us. I don't know if you read, Brian, the worst, he put out one of the worst blogs in America. And they killed it. Not Facebook. It was his blog. Now, and why do you think it was killed, Brian? Well, very simple. Wasn't doing anything. It was terrible. People were making fun of it, mocking it. Now, a number of people told me, I'm not going to read that. I think you should. Not every day. I check it out. I checked it out a few times. And let's say, communication in sentences that make sense are not Trump's. It's not one of Trump's strong suits. So he's more ideally to the 40 character tweet than he was that. It was pretty bad. But to show you how bad, it only generated, now this sounds, some people say, well, that's a lot. On its last day before they pulled it, his blog only generated 1,500 comments or repostings. That's not acceptable. I loved what one did. They went, actually, he was trumped by both Pet Finder, which has his blog as pet service, and the recipe site Delish, neither of which I've ever heard of or read. And I'm, millions of others who did that. Now, so put that 1,500 in your mind for a moment. When Trump was president, his social media reach with people who followed him. Now, again, I followed him. Not everyone who followed him was a supporter. He had 88 million Twitter supporters and 35 million Facebook followers. Those numbers are somewhat significant, especially against 1,500, right? And that's not unusual. You know how fast social media changes, right? And the internet changes. The blog is something of a dinosaur now. So you say, Dave, why do you do them? The blog is great if you want to write an article, okay? That you can't write an article really on Facebook. It's not designed for that. You certainly can't write an article with, a 40 character limit on Twitter. And it got this, but when they rolled it out, and I urge everyone, if they have a free moment, to look at the rollout, even if you can't read anything. Oh, it's unbelievable, Brian. And the words, it's this big, it's going to be this big thing. And here's the words. I'm going to try to do it in my best radio voice. In a time of silence and lies, a beacon of freedom arose. That's how they described it. Do you really think anything Trump could do would be referred to as a beacon of freedom? Right. Except, Brian, as you've continually pointed out tonight, and so rightfully so, except for some percentage of those 74 million people.
Right.
Okay. Now, the last one in the world of the bizarre I've been following this week is it's out there. Okay. It's worthy of inclusion of a 2021 version of Alice in Wonderland, or the 2021 version, which is a kind of the way I reply to something. I don't. Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite films of all time. It's all you need to learn. If you learn everything from the Wizard of Oz, you're fine. But I don't know if you remember the scene, and Brian's. You probably only watched it once, but there's a scene when Dorothy's looking around. She says to her dog Toto, "Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore." And that's kind of the idea of we're in this place that I don't understand. So a name we haven't heard for a while, Steve Bannon. And that was another way I was wrong. I really thought Steve Bannon was the brains behind the operation. And I'm still not so convinced he's still in play, right? But anyway, he comes back and he floated this idea of Donald Trump, ready for this, running in 2022 for the House of Representatives.
Right.
Step one. Step two, assuming, and they're playing the normal game, which Trump has changed the game. According to normal politics, Republicans will take control of the House. We don't know that because everything's out the window now. But so if he were indeed
The majority
elected,
leader of the House, now he's going to be like a quasi-president.
there you are. Okay. Now, there was another idea floated earlier as a Senate, to become a senator. Why that wouldn't be attractive to him? You don't want to battle Mitch McConnell. That was just the House. Yeah, that's where his support is. Now, there is a big problem. So we don't really have to worry about it too much because of this. First of all, he'd have to figure out what district to run in. Okay? And while he would find a safe district, there's no guarantee
He'd win. Well, he would win in a Republican district.
Well, let's look at this, okay? Let's look at this for a moment. And again, this is crazy.
But first of all, he's not showing up to the first baseball game of the year because he knows he's going to get booed.
That's exactly.
So he knows he's not showing up. He's never shown up to the games. One game he showed up there and he got booed.
I would say that in every state in America, even the reddest, there's somebody more popular than Donald Trump. Let's take Alabama, for example. Football coach. Now, I don't know what his politics are, but I'm just saying, there's somebody. Well, let's use Texas. Suppose he chose, Matt McConaughey is out there. And you don't think if he ran for the House, millions of dollars would pour in to defeat him, right? So I think what that was, and again, I'm doing guilty of it, but I think it's just something we put on record. I think that was Bannon's way. I think Bannon did float it. I think it's an interesting because it gets people upset. It gets people thinking, and it takes away from what Trump is going to do. He is going to run for president of the United States in 2024. You heard it here first, unless he is criminally unable to, or is dead, or is so physically incapacitated, i.e. stroke or something, that he can't. Yeah, Willie Nelson could beat Trump, maybe in a couple other states besides Texas. So, what I find interesting with all those stories, though, is this. Donald Trump is no longer president. No matter how much you don't want to put him in the news, no matter how much you want to forget that he's out there, until he is charged with a crime, arrested for that crime, tried for that crime, and either pleads guilty or is found guilty by a jury, Donald Trump remains two things: the leading voice in the Republican Party, and by at least 35 percentage points from every poll that I've seen, the leading candidate to run for president. So there's something, Brian, if you want to worry about.
Yeah,
You know,
that is kind of a worry because you
yeah.
can see them playing
Now,
that.
why is it not a worry? Now, we've argued on this show. I've argued, not argued, that's just wrong. We disagree on this, and the same thing with some people. I cannot dispute your claim, which is absolutely 100% true, that from the time Donald Trump was born until today, he has gotten away with so much illegal things that it boggles the mind. Okay, there's no question about that. Whether it was in school, tying a kid down and cutting his hair, I mean, just all of this, right? And so what happens is, my only argument that I can counter with is, but they've never been criminal charges, right? At no time has he ever been charged with
Right.
anything criminal. They've
Civil
all been
shit.
civil. Now, he has the wherewithal to win civil suits. A, he can just tie him up. B, he has the money to settle if that's what they want, right? C, it's, after a while, you just say, it's worth it. This isn't going away. The criminal charges are not going away. They're not. So while I think it's something of, to put in the back of your mind, I will be surprised. But Trump has surprised me before. I will be surprised if he can survive without being charged. Well, the procedure would be indicted. Indictment will be his charge. He won't be charged first. I think he'll be indicted. He will not plea bargain. I don't see that any way he can. So he'll go to trial, and 12 Americans will decide his fate. And I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I really think you could make an argument that 12 Americans will decide America's fate,
Right.
or at least a good portion of it. So there's been a bunch of comments going on. Anything we need to, we've spent a long time, you and I talking. I get bored with that.
Nothing,
Who's Jamie
hair-raising.
Peck? Do you know? I mean, I've
I
seen
don't know.
that.
In fact, I was going to probably ask you the same question. So,
I don't.
Trev,
I know. I knew. I no.
maybe you
I
can.
I said anybody don't know,
you
Trev.
know
Is
to
it
tell us who
somebody we
Jimmy
should
Peck
know?
is.
Yeah. We look. Hey, I don't care who it is. I want some. I want some more people on the show, simply because. What do we? I mean, I was thinking about this, and you're not going to grab everybody, but it'd be nice. We spend an hour, you and I, doing what we do, right? Whatever that is. But then, getting another voice is nice. Teflon Don, Jacob, can't argue with you. Absolutely true. But I'm going to still give that same counter. Even the Teflon Dons, one day, some things stick. And I think the criminal charges, there's just such a broad array of them. I mean, can anybody in their right mind think that he didn't do something criminal? Or let's put it like his organization didn't do something criminal prior to his presidency? No. And can anybody in their right mind say that he didn't do things that were criminal in his presidency? No. But let's look. In his previous time, who was his judge and jury? Civil, never got there. And who was his judge and jury in his presidential time? Mitch McConnell, who just said, we won't. And I know Ryan, who's been Ryan Velez, good member, has been on our show a number of times. Ryan sometimes is even apologetic for Kentucky. No, it goes beyond that. I mean, Mitch McConnell, after Joe Biden, is the most powerful man in America. I could make an argument that he's more powerful because Joe can only do what Mitch doesn't stop him from doing, right? I can't hear you, Brian. Is your sound muted or is it just muted for me?
Oh, my mic was
Yeah.
off. Sorry, accident.
No, I mean, you say things valuable. I don't
Yeah.
want to. So nothing we really, then, nothing, no questions or anything we need to
I
discuss.
didn't see anything that really,
Yeah, okay.
really
Um,
bounced out there. I mean, there's good conversations going on there, but
no,
they're on our
And-
team basically. I mean,
I'm laughing. You and I have talked about how we do this and how it's done. I've always been grateful for you. You pulled me out of the gutter of the pandemic. No, I'm laughing, but it was just so ironic that you came up with this when I was looking to do things, and I know you laughed at me because I have a pretty good sized ego, and certainly and feel very confident in a classroom or speaking. And man, the first few shows you know, and part of it's that I'm a man who thinks I'm handsome until I look at myself, and a man who loves my voice until I hear it back, right? Which is very typical of people. But it takes some time,
Jamie
to get
Peck,
used to it. I just said very left. I don't know.
podcaster.
I don't know.
Let's see if we can find out who Jamie Peck is here. I see here.
I mean,
right.
we're kind of going
Let
around.
me put
but I
this
mean, I don't-
on here just in case if this is the person, because
I
they
don't
may
know. I mean,
want
it's
you,
fine. I mean-
you to contact them. You being the
Well, the problem becomes though, if they're successful. Oh, wait a minute.
writer and
Is that her?
podcast, produce and to the Majority Report and Sam Sater.
Okay.
Intifada.
Okay, here's the problem. And I mean, we're just whether we're joking or serious. We really are, Brian, and I don't want you to put us down. But in the world of podcasting, we're certainly not in the top of our field, right? I mean, and it's judged on numbers. And, it's really amazing because if you listen to a podcast, kind of all podcasts may be equal, but they're really, I mean, it's hard to get. In other words, I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm not saying it very well. If somebody in our audience knows somebody that they follow, that person may not want to come on this page. Why are they going to waste their time? You're off again, Brian. You're off. You're muted again.
Yeah, if you do know
Quit
these people,
touching
folks. Okay. If you do know these, my air conditioner went on every time it makes this sound. I try to cut it off.
It's
while
much
you're on.
better we hear the air conditioner than it is not hear you.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
So anyway, what I'm saying is, this is to everybody out there. If you know Jamie Peck or anybody like Jamie Peck out there, we'll need your help. I mean, this is where we got to work together because I don't know this person and she doesn't know me. And very few, aside from Guy McPherson, when Paul and I were trying to get guests, it was very, very rare that I mean, I know that Peter Wadhams did it one time with us he was nice enough to do it for about 25 minutes. And that was it. So you have Guy and you had Peter Wadhams. Very few people. I'm going to be honest with you. I contacted through Nate Goldschmidt, Dave, somebody who's well known in the physics world, but also in the world of with climate change. I forget her name, but she's like, in a way, she was bigger than Guy McPherson. She was nice enough to answer me. She says, "I can't do this."
Well, yeah, and I mean, think about it.
She's from England. She's a famous physicist.
I mean, people, people have things they do. Not everybody is Dave Price, retired. I mean, they have jobs. They have all kinds of things. Let's see, Left Darling, the Majority Report, and and again, I'm not faulting our people. It's just very good. I mean, think about it, Brian. Rachel Maddow can pick up the phone and get any liberal in the world
Right.
on her show.
If you get Bernie
You'd be a
Sanders,
fool.
boom.
You'd be a fool not to, right? Now, there are some conservatives that would go on there too. Those who believe, any publicity is good publicity, or I'll go into the Lion's Den or whatever. We don't quite have that same pull. We really don't. And I mean, I've had experience with that. I've worked for 3 types of newspapers: a small local paper, a larger regional paper, and the Philadelphia Bulletin before it folded. And invariably, I could call the same person for the evening news, and they might or might not call me back. I could call that same person when I was at the Atlantic City Press, and they probably would call me back, but kind of on their schedule. And when I worked for when I worked for the Bulletin, they were back to me within a matter of minutes or hours. The same thing, I mean, I tried to put together a number of things, sort of like this, and people mean well. That's the other thing. They really do. I don't think people, again, unless they're on one of these, we're very fortunate, Brian. You and I wing a lot of this, and a few people find it interesting. But as I started studying podcasts more, it's an 8, to produce one podcast, you're looking at about most people, I mean, a podcast, you're looking at least 8 hours of research, So it's not something, and a lot of people don't want to go. I mean, they have a product to sell, right? When they come out, whether
Right.
it's a book.
It is a brand, essentially.
you know, and they they're going to look at it. I have X hours, and I don't think divided we stand as much as I'd like. I don't think it's high on their priority list. That's why I like when our viewers suggest or when they come on the show, because I really do think, and I've interviewed. I'm not, it's hard because then it sounds like no. I mean, I've interviewed some pretty significant people, and I've interviewed some people off the street, and sometimes people off the street, have a fascinating story or have an insight that others don't.
Right.
That always amazes me. Oh, I don't have any stories, and a good questioner gets them to tell the story. I've never met anyone who, once they started their story, it wasn't fascinating, right?
And how many times have we seen people who are on programs who don't know what the fuck they're talking about half the time?
Well, that's the other side of this. Donald Trump being one.
Right. I mean, Donald Trump is stupid.
But and unfortunately, that's something else we can get upset about. But we are a nation, if indeed not a world, where cult of personality trumps intellect, trumps even skill. Sometimes it's just that's where we are right now, and we're not going to go back to that. For example, you say, well, what happened? Well, think about it. Before TV, before radio, TV, and now the internet, you had no way of knowing. How many people do you think in their lifetime saw Abraham Lincoln?
At the time of Lincoln, how many people actually saw him?
Yeah.
I don't know, probably 10,000.
Yeah, a minuscule amount, right? I mean,
Right.
when you look at the totality of, and America with him, and how many people had seen Donald Trump prior to his run for presidency? And I don't mean this, I bet you there weren't 10% of the Americans who hadn't seen him, knew the name, and that's where we are now. And so someone like we're talking tonight about McConaughey on the air, or someone like Oprah, who's often pushed to run. I mean, Oprah Winfrey is great at what she does. Will that make her a great president? We just don't know. Well, there's my least favorite word in the English language today is cancel. Everybody is canceled, right? Well, I don't know about that. Again, it's like I said before, if someone could go on Fox News, I don't think they're canceled. I just don't. Now, some things are canceled. You want to get me off on a tangent here? I'm going to go crazy. I'm not watching any more network television shows. I watched only 2 this year. I usually don't watch any, but this year I did because of the pandemic. One was Rebel, and I thought that was pretty cool, but I really like Katie Seagal. But that's not renewed for another season. And Debris, that was a bad X-Files, so I'm not surprised about that. But now that's canceled, okay? But you know why they were canceled, Brian? Because they didn't bring enough money. They didn't bring enough ratings.
By the way, that's Seagal, hopefully not related to Steven Seagal.
Oh no, they're completely different spellings. I know you don't watch TV. I mean, that much.
I watch news. That's about it.
No, her big role was Peg Bundy in, with Al Bundy, Married with Children, and then her second big role was as the mother Gemma in Sons of Anarchy, which was a very popular show for 7 years. She's she's also starring in 2 shows at one time, which is interesting. Oh, not starring. She was the star of Rebel. And then she was also appearing as Dan Connor's girlfriend from time to time on the Roseanne-less leftovers from the Roseanne Barr show. And Roseanne says she was canceled. Well, she should have been canceled when she sang that damn American anthem. That was off key. No, but again, unfortunately, that's the American way. You said it. What would you use? Power and money. What'd you say tonight? Power and money, right? Or
I've always said in the United States, money gets you power. In Russia, the formula was power gets you money. No, excuse me. Power gets you money.
Yeah.
And it's kind of changed. I think that's where it's kind of changed the United States. The power is the name of the game now, not money. Because there are a lot of people with money that really haven't been able to get anything done. They've put in hundreds of millions and they couldn't become this or that. you know. So,
No. And you know, unfortunately, and this is not a show where we discuss it, but I mean, okay, uh, you know, certainly Donald Trump in his younger days was not an ugly man, right? He really wasn't. Okay, I mean, I don't, you know, now I don't know, but that's you know why? Because he was a TV star, because he conned the people into thinking he had a lot of money. It would be interesting to know today, which we will not know, how much money Donald Trump has. I mean, I don't think, you know, he has millions, but I don't think he
I
has
bet you he has a lot
billions.
more power than money. Again, that's the Russian
Oh,
formula. You
oh,
know.
absolutely.
And he's figured. I mean,
And
it's worked for him, Dave, because he's,
oh, I'm not
you
arguing
know,
that.
that
Of
whole
course.
thing where it used to be. Again, our country ran by that formula of money. You know, if you had the money, you could buy off politicians. Now it's not the same. It really is different.
Well, you know, I mean, yeah, because, and I think again that comes. I mean, social media is in a way, you know, is you know, your face is really your capital now, right? How people react to you. Um, you know, I don't know. Yeah, we're talking about Katie. And again, here's something interesting for you, Brian. I'm not putting up, but she actually values her singing career more.
Really.
Okay, she was a backup singer uh, she toured with Bette Midler. That's
How
one
do you spell her last name? Do you know?
with an A, not Seagal. Seagal. Katie Sagal. Seagal. A lot of times it says Katie Seagal, but
Okay, I'm just looking. I gotta
yeah,
remember. I remember. Is this the redhead in
yeah, and
with Al
you
Bundy's
know,
thing?
yeah, and she never saw herself as
And
an
she looks
actress
different
really.
in this one, guys, because they really had her made up.
Well, and she looks different in all of them. And now
Wow,
again,
different.
I know my good friend R.G. Evans, who doesn't listen to this program, but is a member is a friend of both of ours. Yeah, there's Katie, um, and you know she's she. I mean, I just again, you know, I think I think her versatility is what I like. You know, the roles that she plays are so different. I mean, when you look at Married with Children and Emma in there, and like Jake, I think Jacob pointed out, um, was a voice of, you know, a voice on Futurama. And you know what? That's an interesting to what we're talking about tonight, kind of a tangential thing. A lot of actors now are making a lot of money just doing voiceover because of the growth of animated, animated films and animated TV shows. And it used to be they were just voices, right? Like Mel Blanc. You know, who
Right.
knew what Mel Blanc looked like? Well, now, you know, James Earl Jones was,
And
you
that
know,
guy with what
Mustafa
was the guy with
in The Lion King. Now he has the most interesting voice.
Homer
It's just
Simpson? You know,
yeah.
Castaneda or whatever. I forget his name. But he's amazing. He's so funny.
Well, I mean, just think about that. Um, and do you remember, and maybe you don't, or anybody out there, I think about this. I remember when The Simpsons first debuted, and it was scandalous because they said it would be the downfall of America um, because of Bart's, you know, kind of
Nastiness and rudeness.
pre-teenage rebellion. And but that show is very, very clever, just like South
Fantastic.
Park. South Park is very clever. Um, you know, um, and so, but it's interesting, you know, like I say, it is interesting, you know, what lasts. And you say, well, America's not culture. Well, then how do you explain 60 Minutes? I mean, not newsworthy. I mean, it's the longest running show of its type. Um, you know, it is a news show.
And I
Okay,
remember when
yes,
it started too. It was a
yeah,
long time
but I
ago.
mean, it's a big thing. I mean, a lot of times it's what would I say? I don't know if it's required viewing. Um, and of course, we got to a point. I'm not saying it's all bad. I got more interesting news from the Jon Stewart show and his take on it. You know, when he was running it, um, and a lot of young people, that's where they get their news. Uh, you know, I mean, how many people? Well, let me ask you. It's the comment now. Um, you, do you watch local news? By local, I mean the Philadelphia stations.
I haven't. No, I don't anymore. And I used to watch all the time. No, I don't. I mean,
Yeah,
by
I
accident,
mean,
I
I
might
have
watch
other
it.
reasons for not watching. I don't watch it in DC.
It gets kind
I mean,
of
I'm a paper.
boring after a while too. I mean,
Well, I'm a paper guy. You know, that's not have to debate that. I'm just there. But a lot of people, I mean, now the shift has been to social media. What they say, something like 72% of a group of young people polled said that's where they get their news, social media. Uh, yeah, well, Anthony just said
they get it first
I mean,
there. I'll say that much.
what?
They usually get it first there. It just
Well,
spreads.
again, we're talking about like 60 Minutes is kind of Rachel Maddow on steroids. I mean, you're going to be successful if you're on there, if you got something you want to reveal. Now, I do have to say, when Mike Wallace was on there, if he came to interview me, I'm going to say, no, I'm running. Because, I mean, Mike Wallace was something else. I mean, he just had the goods. And again, I think there are young reporters out there doing very well, but there's a name you might not know. Seymour Hersh broke the Me lie. Woodward and Bernstein, for all their failings, and they're the first to tell you all they did was report the story. They didn't topple a president, but it was there. And so interesting. I mean, we were able, using the Congress, the courts, the press, and the American people, to topple Richard Nixon, a longtime established politician who, despite what you think about him, knew politics inside and out and was more popular in his day politically than Donald Trump. And here we are, how many years later? Roughly 50, 5 decades, not that long in the relative scheme of things. And none of those organizations were able to pull down Trump. Not the press, not the people, not the courts.
Well, the press were the greatest danger to Trump, in my opinion.
They were, but they're counterbalanced by Fox and OAN.
Right, that's what I think. That's probably what happened after they realized what happened to Nixon. They said, we've got to have something out there to.
I mean, I don't want to be one of those old guys that says it wasn't better.
Just make
it
the
wasn't
news.
better. In fact, if anybody thinks that it was so much better back in the day, again, I'm not shilling for Apple. They have enough damn money. But because of research I'm doing, I just finished 8 episodes of their documentary called 1971. And I lived it, and I remembered it as kind of a dangerous time. It was wacko, okay? Nixon was right there, the country, all the many things that are playing here. But what's the difference? You and I've talked about it 100 times. No social media. And that is just huge. And I don't have an answer for it. I mean,
Right.
Again, used properly, it's great. You'll see if you watch that show, just the difference is to have a protest in 1971 from the left, you basically had you really locally, I mean, you did the mimeograph flyers and passed them out. They came out in the head shops. Every city, which no longer exists, had an underground paper. Sometimes things just exploded. They really thought, they being the promoters, really thought they might get 80,000 to 100,000 people at Woodstock. And that one of those things. But right now, with those numbers, and I'll come back to this as an example of that, something that I know actually is a fact. So if you go way back in Trump's time, do you remember, Brian? It was, there were so many bad times, but when he was in Finland, with Putin,
right.
and kissing his ass and having the secret meetings and all that kind of stuff, and a hireling, just an underling, who had worked with Hillary in the campaign, he tweeted in D.C., he was still D.C., he said, this is bad. We should do something. He comes back and protest. And they said, why wait? And they got an impromptu group out there that very night, right? And that started Kremlin Annex. And for more than a year, they protested there every night.
You just reminded me of a bad memory I had from watching that report from Helsinki, and Trump. They were asking about Russian interference, and he said something. I wouldn't know why they would or wouldn't, and then he changed would to wouldn't later. It was just so stupid. You know,
Look, we won't know now. We may never know, but I think we'll get an inkling. Was Trump really in bed with the Russians and Putin, which is a distinct possibility? Certainly, given the fact that they financed a number of his projects.
or was there a coincidence of once, and he just had the winks going
Or
back?
or is there just simply he wanted to emulate Putin? Because no matter how powerful Trump ever was on his most powerful day as a president, Vladimir Putin was more powerful in Russia. I don't know how he survives, but well, I do know, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying. I mean,
When
I
you
mean, I
have
do
the
know. I'm not
military,
saying.
when you
I
have,
mean,
they
oh
have
no,
everything.
no, no, and that's a little scary, I think, too. Like, okay,
And by the way, Putin today or yesterday made the comment saying that he agreed with the Republicans about the insurrection. You know,
oh well, look, come on. I mean, Brian, think about these two things. I think about them a lot. All right. Number one, anybody who thinks Vladimir Putin has America's best interests at heart is not even worthy to be spoken to. Okay. Vladimir Putin does not have America's best interests at heart. Even if he doesn't hate us, he knows that Americans' failings raises him and Russia. That's all. And I think it's more than that. And so, how does an American say Trump's dealings with Putin were okay? I mean, when I saw, I remember the Republican Party. I mean, things changed, but they were the party that was anti-communist, right? And now, now instead of what was it? Rather dead than red, which was a Republican statement back in the 50s, 60s, and into the 70s. It was now better be a Russian communist, whatever that is, because they said not whatever Russian is now, they're not communist.
well, Russia
Than be a
is
Democrat or a
it's
socialist.
I don't know what you want to call it, but it's still an autocracy. It's
Ah,
nothing to do. First of all, they don't like communists there. I mean, the Communist
no, I
Party
know.
has got nothing left, basically.
Well,
So it really isn't. But it's the idea of Russia itself. Even when it was the Soviet Union, many of us would say the Russians rather than the
well,
Soviet Union.
you know, and we don't get into much international stuff here, but because that's, I mean, right now. But man, I mean, you've got the Middle East crisis. We did touch on a couple. That's never. I mean, I don't have an answer for that. What about our war with China? I don't mean a war of, but there can only be somebody has to be number one, right, in economics, and we were it after the Second World War, all the way. You could make an argument still, into maybe even, but that there's no guarantee we'll stay there.
No,
China doesn't have our best interests at heart, right?
no, and they're playing the same game the Russians are. They're kind of
And
defending.
I'm
the
going to
Republicans.
charge tonight. I'm going to make an interesting charge. And anybody out there, I mean, I'm leaving myself open to argument. But I'm going to bring this up as a difference. The Trumpublicans hate China far more than they hate Russia. Do you know why, I think?
I
The
guess.
Russians are white. The Russians
Right.
are white. I mean, and so there you are, ladies and gentlemen. Doesn't take a,
And
what
maybe
was it
because of
Dylan
the
said?
pandemic,
Doesn't
they
take
feel that
doesn't take a
it
weatherman
ruined Trump's
to
chances
know
of
which
winning.
way. Right. It doesn't take a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. At the heart of republicanism, yes, there's money. Yes, there's greed. Yes, there's
And
power.
they can buy Russian wives when they can't
but
find a
but
woman
but
in
a
there.
driving force is hatred of the other, and one of the most others at the top of the Republican agenda is not women getting abortion, although they hate them. It's not the immigrants, although they hate them. It's the fact that they hate Black Americans, and anyone who tells me that they don't, they're lying to me.
Right.
All right, I'm going to sign off with that and just say this to everyone very simply. Thank you, as always, for watching this show. I have fun with it. I don't know how much I inform anyone. I mean, I try sometimes. Brian, you say, oh, you don't have to thank. Yeah, I do. Okay. I think, without you, we don't have this show. And I might still be at that party, not knowing anyone and wandering around. And I came back. Yes, Russian women are very white, except for those who aren't. So tonight is more just a night, not for any wise words of philosophy. Just say thank you we're not going anywhere. And I will end with this. It would be nice if I didn't need this show and we didn't need to do it anymore. But I don't see that day coming anytime soon. So I'll be here as long as you're here. And that's it for me tonight.
Thank you, Dave. As always, thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, Dave's been with us right from the beginning of March of 2020. You know, we're up to, I don't know, we're close to 70 shows. You know, it's a lot of shows. You know, it's a couple years. The Reality Report was like 3 years, 4 years maybe. This is going a while. This one is, to me, more important. Not because the Reality Report wasn't important. It's just that, you know, this is a life and death struggle for our country. You know, for you and for me. It's, you know, it's everything. I mean, you let these bastards take over. You know, it's like Nazi Germany. Forget about climate change. They're not going to worry about that. We lose everything. And this is why, you know, we feel like we're doing something. You know, even though we only have, you know, any one moment, 12 people on the line, we're not going to get the Jamie Pecks or the Katie Segals on the show, but we got you and you got us and we've got you. It's, you know, it's a symbiotic kind of relationship. We really survive this kind of way, you know, just a couple dudes just trying to figure things out. And I'm sure you guys are the same way. So it's great, Dave, to see you, and it's great to see everybody. You know, it's just a lot of fun Saturday nights, and we're gonna keep doing it until, I don't know, the ice caps melt and it's 200 degrees, or the Republicans take over and put us in the Republican gulags. I don't know. Choose your poison, but we're going out together. That kind of thing. So thank you, and Dave. I am going to sign off. Invite Paula as a guest. I don't know. Paula, was it Paula Peck? I don't know. Something like that.
No, Paula Abdul.
Oh, Paula Abdul. Yeah, maybe she'll dance for us.
I don't know.
You know, Paula Abdul. Very interesting. She was a Syrian Jew. It was like a really, really weird. There aren't many Jews in Syria. I guess she was from a family that was. Just very, very interesting background. But she's kind of, I don't say washed up, but I guess she does American Idol or no, I guess she doesn't do that. I don't know what she does. But she's not going to be on the show. So and that's another thing I wanted to tell everybody, that we will not be having Paula Peck or Jamie Peck on next week. Late breaking news, we will not be having Katie Segal joining us next week. We will not be having Ben Burgess next week. A lot of people will not be on our show next week. So, but I'll tell you what, David Price and Brian Weinstein will be there. So, thanks. And hopefully we'll see Trev, Yoda, Jacob, Anthony, Joey, all 12 of us, you know. We'll fight the right fight. So, Dave, I'll see you. Thank you. And I'll talk to you on the phone tomorrow or something like that. See you.